All right, there we go. Anybody not here from, let's see, everybody's here from last session. Yay, we can go by that. All right, what is skinning? Okay, I briefly told you about it before, but basically skinning is the term used to describe the process of putting a visual theme to the site, all right? Adding your style sheet, putting colors in there, graphics, things like that, and making it look pretty, right? So one of the things I like to tell people is .NetNuke has one of the most flexible and most powerful skinning engines I've ever seen. And that still stands today. I so far have not seen in any, especially content management systems, any skinning engine that even comes to compare. When I get through this, you're going to see that basically all you have to do is create a web page, all right, and you have a skin. You'll see that. And you just install it. It's just an upload process. It's automatically there. You go through a little drop-down menu, select it. It's on your page. Okay. Most of the other sites, they don't give you, or other solutions don't give you that type of ability.
Well, so make sure you put this up on your site then.
All right. So why is skinning important? Basically, the one thing I like to tell people the most, especially if you're in a shop, like you said, you don't like to do graphic design. It abstracts that design from the development. Okay, you don't have to be that hybrid person that knows development and graphic design in order to be a skinner. All right, you can have a graphic designer doing your skins. In fact, ResHub.com, I have a graphic designer. She does all my skins. After training her, she came from print, but that's a whole other thing. So the designers don't need to be programmers, and that's important for some people. Okay, you can have that person be specialized in that thing, and you don't have to have your development team waste time on doing the skins, right? Necessarily, depending on what you're trying to do. If you want to do some stuff that's very, very complicated, you obviously need to say, hey, let's let this guy touch it. All right. So very quickly, you can manage the layout of your entire site very quickly. I mentioned a few clicks. That's true. I'll show you how you can do it in just a few clicks. Product branding. If you have a live site that's not an intranet, and sometimes it is even important in an intranet, but branding is very important. Okay, a skin allows you to keep that branding throughout your site. Now, for some people, if you don't know, branding is more than just the logo. It's the colors, not just any colors, very specific colors. All right, they have to match a very specific hex code and a very specific Pantone color. These things are, when you talk to designer, colors are one of the most important things in the world. All right, so skins will help you achieve that. And another thing, it provides a business model within the ecosystem of .NetNuke. Okay, so basically, you can run a business just doing skins. I do side work doing skins. All right, and that's my supplemental income. I do a skin here and there, sell it on Snow Covered, and every month I get a check for not doing anything. I like that, right? And with skins, if you're looking at doing module development, or you're looking at a business model within .NET, is anybody? I'll tell you anyway. It's just one sentence. Skins is a much better business model if you're not doing this and you're not diving into this. Because with skins, you have a lot less maintenance going forward. Okay? With modules, you're always looking at new features. You're always looking at fixing bugs. That doesn't stop. With skins, you make the skin usually once or twice, and you're done. All right, skinning engine overview. So these are some things we're going to go through, and I want to try to get to looking at the code and the design real quick, so I'm going to go over that. So what software should you use? The answer is it doesn't really matter. All right, whatever you want to create HTML in or whatever, you can use whatever you want. Personally, when I'm working with skins, I usually use Visual Web Developer, but sometimes I use Dreamweaver. Okay. All right. So one thing to make sure you do is make sure you have very well-formed HTML. Well, not very. It's either well-formed or not, right? So well-formed HTML. So that takes me out of the pure CSS thing. I'm not going to really address that at all. I'm going to show you examples that are not pure CSS. Is anybody in here? Well, nobody in here is a designer, right? Do we have any people that are HTML coders, CSS? Okay. One thing I will tell you just briefly, I won't have to go into great detail and answer a bunch of questions, thank goodness. One thing I will tell you very briefly is, while pure CSS does have its strengths, anybody don't know what pure CSS is? Okay. Pure CSS is a matter or a method of doing design work in the web to where you use almost exclusively CSS to do your web and no tables. Okay, you're using all divs and all CSS. I always come at it with a hybrid approach for a very important reason, and it's very apparent in .NET-Nuke. When you use divs, they're not very good wrapping tools. So if something grows, things are going to go awry. All right. If you're using positioning, CSS or your divs are going to end up in wrong places. They're going to be overlapping. I'm sure you've seen that in lots of places. Text going behind other things or over other things. When you use pure CSS, that's going to happen a lot.
Cross-browser.
Oh, yeah. There's cross-browser compatibility issues too. So one thing I found, because I have done pure CSS, is you're going to be spending at least 4 times the amount of time to do a pure CSS design, period, not just a skin, versus a hybrid approach where you're using tables and divs. Okay, and I use the hybrid approach. I'm not exclusively tables. They're, like I said, they have their strengths, but I use my tables to wrap things, and then I'll use the divs inside of that. Okay, so when you talk to your designers, you can tell them, hey, that's a good thing to do. And I said it was even more apparent with .NET-Nuke, and the reason being, with .NET-Nuke, when you start installing other modules, whether they're core or not, some core modules are not completely HTML compliant or XHTML compliant. They're working at that. In fact, the next version is supposed to be almost completely fixed. All right. Now the core modules, that's another story. That they have a different timeline than everything else. Okay. But when you install a third-party module, or even if you have the text module and somebody has HTML in there, if your skin's pure CSS, it'll break very easily concerning those things. You're not if they have a malformed HTML or anything like that. All right, so it's very important to keep those type of things in mind when you're talking about a design or you're doing your own skin. Okay. One thing that's very important when you do start working with your HTML, if you're not familiar with CSS, get friendly with it. All right. Everything that can possibly be in your CSS really, absolutely, 100% needs to be there. All right. Even if it's a width, a border, a color code, everything really needs to be in your CSS. Believe me, it's going to make your life easier. If you don't do that, you're going to have a ton of things to change in a ton of places. If you keep everything in your CSS, your boss comes up and says, hey, you know what, I don't quite like the alignment of that. You don't have to go find your skin file and go work with that. You have your CSS file, you can go change that alignment real quick, upload it, your site's done. Right? Everywhere. Okay? And even if you're doing a new version of your same skin, you have that one resource to look through. You don't have several files to go flip through and see, okay, whoa, wait, how did I make that do that? You have your CSS. Okay? All right, tables versus divs. I just went into that. User controls versus HTML. That was your question. There's virtually no difference between it. So the main thing you want to look at is if the person comes from a designer background, they'll want to use HTML or you want them to. If they come from a programming background, you probably should use you can use the user control version. Okay, and not version. It's just whether you use one or not. Is one better over the other? Absolutely not. It's just whatever you prefer. Now, if you're going to do this as a business model, if you're planning to do this at send skins out to people, I would highly suggest using the HTML method because once they buy it from you, they own it. All right. There's usually no maintenance fees or anything like that with skins. So they would be more inclined to tell somebody else about you if they could understand it, if they had to modify it. All right, so I would suggest if you're doing it as a business model, do it in HTML. All right, so basically do what you're comfortable with. Now, one difference I will tell you that doesn't really matter is when you upload your skin, the HTML has to go through a parsing method through .NET-Nuke, and the user control does not. There's your difference. Now, does that affect the end user? Absolutely not. Okay, skinning engine overview. Probably all of y'all, if you've had, how many people have looked into skinning a little bit? Maybe even looked at the documentation. Anybody looked at the documentation? All right. So all of y'all have probably seen the term tokens all over the place. All right. Basically, token is what's also called. You also refer to that as a skin object, but it's not a skin object. Basically, a token is a placeholder for where the skin object is going to go. All right. A skin object is something on your page that provides functionality, very much like a module. All right. But you can't drop a skin object onto the page. Once the skin object's on the page, it's there. So it's part of your skin. So can anybody guess what a good example of a skin object would be on a website? I'll bring up this one.
Logo.
Logo, exactly. That's a skin object. It doesn't change. It's always there. It always provides one specific function. It doesn't have settings. It's just there and does that thing. Another thing would be search, the login link, the register link. That center section right, there we go. Right there, the home, that's breadcrumb user control.